This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
July was exhausting, right? So many twists and turns and tumult. And I'm not even talking about the wild record-high weather. Also, some new attention on Nevada as the battle for the presidency gets re-energized. So while we hope for a little settling down in August, the news rolls on. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm joined by Nevada Current editor April Corbin-Gurnis and my co-host Sarah Lohman, and we're talking about the voter ID bill that made it past the bouncers onto the ballot in November, some high-profile labor law violations at local restaurants, and the GOP vice presidential candidate getting a pass on our most treacherous gaffe. It's Friday, August 2nd. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. April, Sarah, welcome to the Friday News Roundup.
Hi, David.
Happy to be back.
So before we get into the news, I like the hot headline idea, like a story that's out there that maybe there's not enough to talk about, but definitely worth mentioning. So an old familiar name is back in the Las Vegas news, maybe one you thought we wouldn't be thinking about for a while. Any guesses who it is?
Is it that local favorite Flava Flav is sponsoring the women's water polo team and is in Paris having the absolute time of his life while advocating for more financial support for our gold medal winning athletes?
Is it Flavor Flav? No.
Oh,
April?
That was a great answer. I don't have that good of an answer for that. I know Jesus Jar was in the headlines, and that gave me a jump scare.
All right, let's go with that jump scare. It's Scream 17. You're right, April Corbin-Gurnis.
He's back and better than ever, huh?
He is. It's former CCSD Superintendent Jesus Jara. And the news is he has a new job, proving that juice in Las Vegas can't be stopped by geographic borders. Jara has been named Prometric's new and apparently first K-12 global practice leader. It's a job that apparently concerns AI and education. Not sure if he has any special training there. But congrats to Jara, who has landed on his feet upon a cushy cloud. Meanwhile, the search for the new superintendent is ongoing and not expected to conclude until the end of October. Okay, so let's get into the newsy news. Las Vegas Sands, the company that once controlled the Venetian but is kind of out of the market, has funded a voter ID initiative that's going to show up on our ballot in November. April, what's going on there?
Yes. So backing up for a second for anybody who has sort of missed it originally, as of today, there are 7 statewide ballot questions slated for the November election. One of them is a proposed constitutional amendment from a PAC called Repair the Vote. And it does 2 things. First, it would require you to show a photo ID prior to voting. And second, it would add another step to mail voting, requiring you to, along with your signature, putting the last 4 digits of your driver's license number, the last 4 digits of your Social Security, or a number that each county clerk would give a voter when they register to vote. Because this is a proposed constitutional amendment, it has to pass twice this year and then in 2026 before becoming law. And so, voter ID requirements have been proposed in the past, both in the legislature where Democrats typically refuse to give them any hearing, and then also as a ballot measure as recently as the last election cycle in 2022 when the same PAC filed a similar petition, but it got thrown out in court. So anyway, it's notable because this year this push has made the ballot and it's got much more backing and sort of momentum than in previous years with prominent Republicans, namely Governor Joe Lombardo, coming out in vocal support. And as you just mentioned, this week the Nevada Independent reported that Sands Corp gave $1.5 million to a Lombardo PAC, which immediately sort of turned around and gave $1.4 million to Repair the Vote in support of the ballot initiative. Based off the timing, the money likely helped pay for, the signature gathering effort, which can be a costly endeavor for these things. And to be clear, the money transfer isn't illegal or sort of unusual, but it's just notable to know who is financially backing any political efforts, because obviously Sands is known for being connected to conservatives and the right and Republicans, and the voter ID people have tried to make this issue, they try to argue that it is bipartisan and it has support for a lot of people. So it is prominent and sort of notable that a huge Republican donor is sort of behind it or backing it.
Yeah. Now, the Sands used to be Sheldon Adelson, a well-known big-time billionaire GOP contributor. He is passed away. The Venetian and the Palazzo were sold to another company. Sarah, what are advocates saying is the reason behind this initiative? And I guess the follow-up there is going to be, do we even need that in Nevada?
I actually want to answer that question with a question. Has there been any widespread voter fraud in Nevada?
No.
Great. So then the reason they're doing this is to make voting more difficult, because Nevada has a fantastically easy voting system in that every single voter gets a mail-in ballot. They don't have to request it. Like, it's really one of the most incredible systems in the country. But the problem is, April and David, when more people vote, governments tend to go Democrat. When more people vote, Democrats win. So we know on a national scale that these ballot ID requirements and various requirements to restrict voting in one way or another, because we also know our state Republicans have gone after mail-in ballots again and again and again, is a political tactic by Republicans, because if people have more access to be able to vote, Republicans lose.
Well, I mean, that's all fine and holistic and intellectual and thoughtful, Sarah. But isn't the pitch that's out there a little more simple? Like, why wouldn't you want to have a secure election? Why don't you want to make sure that only the people who should be voting are voting? Isn't that as simple as it is, April?
Yeah, that's the argument that they're making. And when you poll voters or people about the possibility of a voter ID, most people are open to it because of this very simple argument of you show your ID for a lot of things. I have to show my ID before I buy beer. I don't, because I'm old looking now. But you know what I mean? You have to show your ID before you buy beer. You have to show
cigarettes.
Or cigarettes, or porn, or weed, or whatever. Like all of these things that are absolutely less important than voting.
Did you say corn? You need ID for corn?
Who buys corn in person
I was thinking
anymore? April Corbin Gertis, apparently.
She's going to the adult superstores.
The adult superstore. You got
to buy a
stimulate
vibrator.
The economy somehow.
I have to show ID. I don't know.
Well, to get
into
that
place,
store, probably.
Yeah, I
bet
so.
they're 18 over, or yeah. That'd be fair to say, probably.
Guys, do you know that Walmart sells vibrators and dildos?
I don't know. Man, we are going off base here with voter ID, but...
Okay, so I should have used a better example. Paint.
That was a great example. We loved it.
Spray paint.
You do.
Spray paint at the hardware store or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of... The idea, though, to get back on track, is that you show your ID for a lot of things, and it seems like a very simple thing. So Sarah's point is that a lot of people don't realize that there's a significant amount of people who it has been shown don't have the proper ID. In some states, voter ID laws are really strict where they have to have a photo and they have to have your current address. So if you think about the number of people you know in your life who are driving around with a driver's license that shows their last home address and not their current address, that would sort of inhibit them from voting, right? So there's a lot of sort of nuances to that when you get into the sort of what it looks like in practice. It doesn't appear that would be the case with the Nevada's proposal. It's just a photo ID, and they have a list in the ballot initiative of things that would count as that, including like a student ID and a concealed permit carry, concealed carry permit, things like that. But that's the simple argument, is that it's needed or that it's not.
But you also have to be a registered voter to vote.
They're already in the roll, yeah. We're not arguing with you.
So you're on the roll. I mean, isn't that the difference between buying cigarettes and voting? Is that there isn't a state database of all the eligible cigarette buyers and then just kind of checking the name or the signature or something like that?
David, to answer your question about why, of course, voters want a secure election. The problem is the election is already secure. So when it is being pitched by the right as, don't you want a secure election? The election is already secure. voter fraud is incredibly rare. When it has happened, ironically, it's happened by people on the right who have literally gone to vote twice.
Not always.
Not always.
But those are some famous cases. They're actually the biggest one in Nevada recently was, in fact, a giant GOP supporter.
So our election is secure. So why do we need a ballot measure to make our election secure? By saying we need to make our election secure, it's implying that it's not. And so someone who is uninformed might assume that it's not. It is, in fact, very secure, and there is no ID requirement necessary.
I mean, it does seem a bit like a cultural divide issue to drive people who falsely or, in their heart of hearts feel that there are these election security issues to be safer. So is there anything more that election officials can do to communicate with Nevadans who have some concern, rightful or wrong, about election security?
I think that there has been a sort of positive trend towards, in the last few months, there's been two groups that have popped up recently. One of them is called Right Count, which is a clever pun. And then the other one's called Democracy Defense Project. And both of those are either bipartisan efforts or, in the case of Right Count, specifically focused on Republicans. And it's sort of what I like to call the reasonable Republican crowd, trying to send the message to Republicans that voting is safe and secure, that mass voter fraud is not a thing, and that they are trying to be a voice of reason in a party that has rejected that largely.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Amazon has curated selections of college essentials, from dorm room hacks to internet-famous finds. And with Amazon's unbeatable deals and everyday low prices, there's no need for a second student loan. Plus, with Amazon's fast and reliable delivery, it's all there when it needs to be. Make the most of college for less with Amazon. Shop now at amazon.com/off-to-college.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Okay, topic 2. The Department of Labor has cited some Vegas restaurants for different types of violations. Sarah, what's happening in the Valley?
So there are two pretty different labor violations against two different chains here in Southern Nevada. The first is Blaze Pizza. They've got 10 franchise locations in Nevada. They have been assessed with nearly $300,000 worth of civil penalties for violating child labor laws. So number one, kids were performing dangerous tasks. We're talking 15 to 17-year-olds here. They were operating industrial pizza dough mixers, which they're not allowed to do. You can lose arms and fingers and such. And then they also found 5 15-year-olds who were working more than 3 hours on school nights, and sometimes they were working as late as 10:30 p.m. on a school night. So this is federal law. It forbids 14 and 50-year-olds to work more than 3 hours on school days and prohibits employment after 7 p.m. From the day after Labor Day through May 31st, basically during the school year. So then we also have another local business getting hit with fines and violations and unpaid wages. That's Juan's Flaming Fajitas and Cantina. There are 3 restaurants here in Southern Nevada. The issue is that they have 32 employees who work at multiples of their 3 locations, and these employees were not being paid overtime because they were getting checks individually from each of those locations as opposed to from the franchise. So if they worked 20 hours one place and then 30 hours at another location, they weren't getting that 10 hours of overtime because they were getting 2 different checks. So this is a lot of money. So we're talking $500,000. Almost half of that is in back wages. And then we've got damages and civil penalties. The owner says he just didn't know. He said, "We took our punishment. We have never deliberately withheld money or pay from anybody. We just didn't know. We didn't know these rules or guidelines."
Yes, we were just shifting employees around our different locations so that none of them in any individual location went over 40 hours. That is a position. What questions do these two higher profile Department of Labor violations at Vegas restaurants raise for y'all?
I'm glad to see this happening because labor violations are self-reporting as opposed to coming in, as opposed to a inspector looking at food safety violations, which is a regular appointment. These have to be reported by someone who works there, which of course is tremendously stressful and risky, and you're definitely at risk of being fired if you're going to be the person who's speaking up within your restaurant, especially because these places aren't unionized. You know, we have the strong culinary workers union who offers protections and also offers an intermediary that you can go to, right?
Yeah, no, if there's shenanigans, you report it to the company steward or, goes up the chain, and then it becomes kind of the union advocating for you.
They don't allow malarkey there, right? We've got a tough union. However, off the strip, these restaurants aren't unionized. So there's less protections there. So I'm glad to see these things are happening, but also how many labor violations are out there that we don't know about?
I think that's a great point. And I think we're talking about food, but I just want to point out that these kind of labor violations happen all the time. They happen in retail. They happen in construction. They happen sort of. That's a really bad one. Yeah. But they're sort of all over the place. And having covered a fair amount of labor issues in the state, even the unions are fighting these kinds of things all the time. Like there are always companies that are trying to do the malarkey, as you just said, or the shenanigans or whatever, and then unions have to fight that. And unions. They struggle with it, and they're going to be more successful than your average everyday person, I think, because obviously they're more organized and all of that, but it's an ongoing issue. So if it's hard for the unions, of course it's going to be really hard even just for individuals. Yeah. And, one of the things is how, I think, can we better protect sort of these vulnerable populations? Like, obviously, teenagers are going to be a vulnerable population because, one, they're young and they're not going to know working conditions and laws. They also are less likely to care about working 4 hours on a school night, perhaps, because their priority is going to be aligned. But sort of as a society, we have to be like, no, you can't do that, right?
Well, I think, too, that you're talking about the fact that the industries that you just mentioned are ones that are heavily populated by undocumented immigrants. I mean, speaking of the restaurant industry alone.
And documented immigrants, too. I mean, people who might not have English as their first language and might get a little confused by
but also if you're undocumented, it's far less likely that you're going to report a labor violation because you don't want to bring any undue attention to yourself. And 10% of the labor in the restaurant industry is done by undocumented immigrants. So it's a highly vulnerable population.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I've been hearing for decades from people who work both on and off the strip that management does all these little games, like games with the time clock of when you're in and when you're out so that you don't collect overtime, even though you are physically there, or not giving you credit for prep time when you're there and things like that. And, and that's the big argument, just generally speaking, about theft. We talk about crime rates. But when we talk about crime rates going up or down or whatever the rhetoric is in political campaigns and stuff like that, we're never talking about like this sort of management stealing money from workers. Like it's not criminalized to the extent that grabbing a box of M&Ms from a Walgreens is. You know what I mean? And where you're talking about like really going hard on retail theft at the at the Walmart, which might be something worth maybe $50, you're not talking about the theft of employee wages that could be like here over $500,000. And it's a really sad conversation that there's an exploitation without accountability. But now it looks like I guess the Department of Labor is looking at it hard. Do you think they should be more proactive? And how would they accomplish that here in Las Vegas?
I mean, I think there's certainly a lot of room for the state to enforce further thing and to look more into that. I mean, if you look at the, Nevada Labor Commissioner and their department, they're pretty bare bones in terms of the amount of people they have to research these things. Obviously, there's a federal element there also, but there's certainly more immediately steps could be made at the state level or even the local level. I mean, county governments and city governments wanted to sort of crack down and look at these type of things and put a bigger focus on this than they do I don't know, criminalizing homeless people, they could certainly do that. It's just a matter of priority. Like you say, what kind of theft do we value? What kind of theft do we worry about? And it's certainly a conversation we could have and should have.
Another thread in this story is these teens, working in a way that violates labor law, child labor law, though we are talking about teens, but, teens, child.
They're children.
Synonymous. I'm older than both of you. As a teen, I was working, to me, a very treacherous job. I think I was 16 years old, working in a movie theater, and they had the old school popcorn machines with all the little pins, and I would have to clean this thing, and I would routinely come home with burns like on every part of my hand and arm from cleaning out this machine. And I had a horrible manager who used to call me Junior and tell me I had to go back and do it again. But I was saving up money for college, and I am a teen, and this is the job that's available to me. Should teens have more opportunities to work? Are these rules maybe a little too restrictive?
No. No.
I mean, my burn's healed, and I became the man I am today.
No, because it's also about hours too, David. Listen, so in the past decade, child labor law violations have tripled. Okay. And I actually don't think it's cracking down on the law. I think that there are more children working. So something I know from my research into international food production is that when you see instances where children are working, and again, anyone under 18 is a child, that means that their parents are not making a living wage. So what we're seeing is a symptom
you're being holistic and thoughtful again, Sarah.
As opposed to like, kids should work, kids shouldn't work.
Yes.
This is a symptom of an illness that Americans are not getting by, and they are not being supported by their governments. So specifically when we're looking at the chocolate industry in West Africa, where we're seeing a lot of child labor that is the result of large chocolate companies wanting cheap chocolate, basically what they're expected to do is invest in the community so that kids can be in school, not on the work site.
Right,
and
but bringing it home, Ethel M is cool.
Ethel M's
to our knowledge.
To our knowledge. But we're obviously seeing the same issues we're seeing worldwide here in the Las Vegas Valley. If a family can afford to not send their kid to work, they're not going to work. Or a kid is going to work part-time over the summer, make some extra money, right? We're not offering a living wage and financial security and stability to American citizens, and we're seeing an uptick in child labor. And with that, we're actually seeing, sorry to bring it back to the Republicans again, but several Republican lawmakers, not locally, but nationally, have said that we should loosen child labor laws because it builds character. What it does is means that kids aren't going to school, or if they're showing up, they're a body in a chair. They don't have the energy to actually learn anything. And that ultimately equals the oppression of the working class.
April, you've got kids. Do you not look at them as a potential revenue source for your household?
Yeah, I mean, they don't even listen to me when I ask them to, like, clean up after themselves. There's no way they're going to, like, keep a job,
Are you going to let your kids seek out jobs when they're 15, 16 years old?
I mean, my personal parenting philosophy is that if you're not doing anything else, sure. But like, I hope that my kids, I have young kids, to be clear. I hope that when they're teenagers, that they will be involved in different activities, like student extracurriculars of the academic kind, sports, student government, something like that. Something that keeps them busy and gives them life experience that's not a job. There's plenty of time to work after that. But if they're just like goofing off and they want to play Fortnite all day, then yeah, go work at McDonald's or whatever.
Nice. Okay, rapid fire. What was your first job and how old were you?
I was a runner for a law firm. I was 16 because I had a car. So it was 16, 17.
Mine, I think I was 15. It was a summer job. I filed paperwork at my dad's place of employment at the time. I don't even know if I might have been under the table. But honestly, both of my parents worked, and I wanted to get a job during the school year. My mom told me absolutely not. School is your job. And so they both worked to make that happen. But, we sort of joke about it, but there are families in America who look at their kids and say, this is a revenue source that we need, and that should not be happening.
Yeah. My first job, 14, I was a paper boy for the Las Vegas Sun. Wow. At 15, I worked in a retail store at the Las Vegas Dunes. And at 16, the aforementioned movie theater, the Boulevard Twin on Maryland, no longer there. But I was already in college at that point, too. So I should be working.
That's so Vegas.
So Vegas. So Vegas.
This won't surprise you, but my first real job at 16, I worked at a history museum. And here we are today. Thanks, Mom. I was
Not
Nepo
a
babied in
surprise.
as well. My mom was a manager.
Nice. Okay, third topic. J.D. Vance, the vice presidential nominee for the GOP ticket, the companion to Donald Trump, made his first stop in Nevada. He was up in Reno and in Henderson, gave, a very short, typical stump speech, introduced Sam Brown at one of the rallies. He was over at Liberty High School down here. Boy, the people came out. But what was most interesting, and I saw this reported by Jessica Hill over at the Las Vegas Review-Journal, is that there were multiple times when J.D. Vance mispronounced our state name, which, as we've discussed on this podcast and in private, is a huge faux pas for a visiting politician to not say our name right to us. But the RJ had pointed out in its story that the crowd didn't seem to care, which begs the question for me, what Nevadans was he talking to that they didn't just boo him? Some people have put this out on social media, like, I can't believe that this guy got a pass for, the biggest gaffe that you could make when you're a politician. And people clap back. They said, you're just doing that because it's a Republican, not because it was a Democrat. But no, my friends. There are ample examples of whether it be Michelle Obama or George W. Bush or whoever it is, if you say Nevada in front of a big crowd, you're going to get heckled. And apparently J.D. Vance did not. How bad of a gaffe is it for a politician to mispronounce Nevada, apparently in 2024 now? And what does it convey to an audience, or apparently not?
The second half of that question, I think the answer is that it just shows a lack of preparedness on the part of the campaign, right? Like, you should have Nevada people to dare to tell you how to pronounce it properly, and you should be remembering that. I mean, these are politicians running at the highest level. You know what I mean? Like, you can't pronounce one of your states right. Are you going to go to a foreign country and talk to foreign leaders and pronounce their names wrong? I mean, there's just this sense of you just look sloppy as a politician, right? Like, it's less about, I'm not a stickler about how you pronounce the state name. But
you've been in crowds where that's happened before.
It certainly
I have
is.
too.
Like, I don't think it's like a serious thing, but like it's certainly just sort of silly and fun to talk about. But I think on a deeper, more serious level, it's like, how prepared are you? And that's relevant considering there's a lot of questions about how prepared he is in general, and how sort of ready for a main stage he's going to be. So I think that's the kind of thing.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that were said that made people kind of roll their eyes. He kept calling Kamala Harris the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. And then, like, literally Bernie Sanders called in and said, "What are you talking about?" That was my Bernie Sanders. That wasn't horrible. Sarah, what do you make of J.D. Vance, of all people, getting a pass from the crowd? That's what it sounds like.
We're both Ohioans, right?
Okay.
His whole shtick is about, like, where I'm from and my state. And I hate that he's co-opting white poverty and basically blaming poor people for being poor, just switching it up and do it with white people instead of people of color this time. Listen, you said people are rolling their eyes, but no one there was rolling their eyes because these politicians, this team, speaking preparedness, thinks that they're above all this. I don't know if they are, but it seems like they feel like they're leading a cult of feckless supporters. And maybe they are, because on one hand, who cares if you bat an eye, if you mispronounce the state's name, if you don't bat an eye at J.D. Vance literally saying that women shouldn't have rights, then you're not going to bat an eye at him mispronouncing Nevada.
Okay, that is a raw point, and I appreciate it. But as an old Nevadan, like, this shift has confused me. Like, even for hardcore supporters to not be fazed by this little thing that means more. Like you say, April, this little thing has a little bit more significance. Is it over? Can you say Nevada any way you want now? Can I
do wonder, and I wasn't at that event, and I didn't obviously then talk to anybody in the crowd, how local it was. I know that a lot of Trump rallies, like some of the events that he's had before, Trump, the former president, when he's come, there's a lot of people who travel for him. Like you'll see people from Arizona and like Utah will come to Las Vegas to see him because they want to support him. And those people maybe wouldn't care as much about
They're like
how
traveling with fish.
Yeah,
with the dead.
exactly. So they don't really care how...
They just want the hits. They don't care about the local faux
So
pas.
they may not have a very strong opinion about how to say the state's name. I don't know what the crowd was like at that. So it may still be, David, that at another thing, if it's more Vegas people, if he was talking to a room full of like, cops in Nevada or somebody, or you're going to be like people who were local and for sure local or whatever, they may like heckle him for that. So maybe it's just Vance, maybe all the Ohioans that were in town went to go visit him
not.
Or whatever at Liberty High School.
As an Ohioan, Nevada.
Just
so we're clear.
I mean, maybe there is a tourism industry. There's, people come here for medical procedures. Maybe they come here for political procedures too.
Do you by medical procedures abortions because it's banned in most states?
Well, no, other things too. There's medical tourism, but yes, it is a lot of things.
Sorry, y'all. I had a root canal this week, and I'm angry.
And you're on drugs, and I love both those things. Okay, let's shift gears just a bit, and let's have an imaginary politician. We'll call this person Politician X, and they're campaigning in Nevada. What is the worst Las Vegas-specific gaffe that they could make?
Confusing Summerlin with Green Valley.
It's good to be here in Green Valley.
I know. You imagine saying that in Summerlin. It would be over.
Yeah.
Man, if JD Dance, now that is a politician I want to follow.
I get JD Vance mixed up with JD Powers, which is like they review cars or something.
JD Power Associates. If JD Vance was actually educated, he could have made a Hendertucky joke that absolutely killed, since he's like the hillbilly elegy sweetheart. But he didn't. And that's what happens if you don't prepare.
Wow. But what kind of gaffe? I mean, I know that you are newer to our community.
3 years this month, David.
Oh, my God. Yeah. No, I consider you to be a longtime local now. So what would be the Las Vegas gaffe that a politician could make?
I wish I had a cute one for you, but I had a root canal, I'm angry, and I'm on drugs. I do have one that really irritates me. Do not color tortoises turtles. Tortoises and turtles are very different things. We're proud of our desert tortoises. We do have turtles, but don't confuse them. They're different.
Got it.
And Summerlin is not its own city, just as I know.
True.
It's a neighborhood.
See, mine was going to be really simple, as I envisioned Politician X walking through a casino past a craps table and just shouting out, "Well, I hope you don't get a 7," which, is a superstition. Like, you're not allowed to say that number around a craps table.
I have another one, and it's very hyper-specific, and it happens to me all the time. It's when I went to Las Vegas High School, and whenever I say that, people always say, "Oh, you went to the academy?" No, those are two separate schools. I went to Las Vegas High School, which is currently on the east side of town. I did not go to Las Vegas Academy. I was not cool enough.
Yes,
So
the
don't
confusion
confuse
being
them.
that the building has housed both Las Vegas High School and now the Academy. So if a candidate was doing a speech at Las Vegas Academy and referred to it as Las Vegas High School, if you're in the crowd, you lose your shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna boo. I'm not gonna vote for them. It's that's end.
April, this sounds like a you problem.
Why?
Because you're jealous of the Las Vegas Academy people because you weren't cool enough to go.
Ouch.
You're not wrong. Go Wildcats, though. Okay.
Go Wildcats. Sarah Lohman, April Corbin-Gurness, thanks so much for joining us on the Friday News Roundup.
Thank you, David.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Our executive producer is Sonia Cho Swanson. Our producer is Layla Mohammed. Our newsletter editor is Rob Katcheries. And our hosts are Sarah Lohman and me, David Figler. Music is by OG Moose, Epidemic Sound, and All the Kimonos. We record the show on the traditional homelands of the Nuuvi, the Southern Paiute people. If you enjoyed the show, hey, go tell a friend. You could also rate the show, though we do prefer the 5 stars. So yeah, I mean, if you don't have something nice to say. But you can leave us a review. We read them all. And subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Las Vegas. We'll be back Monday morning with more news for around the city. Till then, stay lucky.